Well, first off, thank you, Sean, for those amazing introductions. And thank you to the Western Justice Center for hosting this panel. I think it is really important to be intentional about training up our young activists in the future of America, especially when the anniversary of Bloody Sunday is this Sunday, ironically enough. So with that being said, we're going to jump straight in. What does good trouble mean to you? As I just referenced, good trouble to the late Congressman John Lewis meant marching across that bridge for voting rights in Selma, Alabama. So what does good trouble mean to you? And we're going to start off with Christian.
Well, greetings, folks. I'd like to just say first, thank you for having me, and I'm honored to, share in this space with you all. And I'll just say, for me, good trouble refers to the acts, the ideas and values that work to bring about or restore, I should say, humanity for all peoples, right? That's the good. And then the trouble really speaks to the relationship to the various social structures, the laws that, we really have to respond to, that have sought out to oppress and, put certain groups down. So in other words, that's working with young people, giving them the tools to actually do this change, to create this progress, right, before they become indoctrinated or even conditioned to, to normalize the various ways and practices that oppress people and look to, devalue, again, the humanity of all peoples.
Quick note to the rest of the panelists, after the first person kicks off the answer, you can just feel free to jump in.
So, okay, so I would imagine I'll go. Getting into good trouble. I look at it as willful defiance, right? That term has been used so much to target communities of color, Black, brown communities, and sort of push us out of school. And so I think that for me, getting into good trouble as an artist, I had to learn to sort of redefine the role of willful defiance for me, right? I willfully defied some of the authorities in my life, from principals and teachers, intentionally, and that got me in a lot of trouble, right? And I thought it was good trouble because at the end of the day, being suspended for wearing a Malcolm X shirt that says "Free South Africa by all means necessary" in 1988, because I willfully defied taking it off because the principal said it promoted violence. To me, that's what getting in good trouble means, is to understand the place and power of art as a tool for restoration and transformation.
I guess I'll go next. Hello, everybody. Good trouble, it's a really good question. I think it's following our consciousness, our faith, and accepting the consequences that will happen with that, with our truth. And also for me, to be loyal with my beliefs and my vision, having that loyalty, with that, and not, I remember I was organizing a conference, and there was a guy from Hawaii that I wanted him to present at my conference, and he said, "I'll do it as long as it's within my vision." So staying within our vision and embracing it, and following the truth, that voice that's inside that talks to us, that tells us that, it's sometimes it yells at us, sometimes it's really it has a low voice, to follow that and to cultivate it.
I'm going to pick up on Luis's sentiments as well. I think getting into good trouble is about applying your purpose to furthering justice. I think in addition to that kind of knowing voice inside of you, there are gifts and talents and significance that we have that are meant to disrupt injustice, to uproot darkness, to transform systems of oppression, to fuel what Omar talked about, that level of willful defiance of, evil and public policies that are unjust. But I do think that good trouble means that the good part of it is that it's a virtue, a personal virtuous plight that you're on. And you're not trying to do what others are doing, but you're doing what you were meant to do and what you're uniquely good at. And that's what makes it very troublesome for the injustice, because when we put the significance and the power of our purpose behind a righteous cause, it has to yield. So I think that good trouble is about discovering your life purpose, discovering your gifts, your talents, cultivating them, and using the power of the intersection of your power and purpose, your passion and your purpose, in order to shine light on darkness actively.
It is unfair that I have to go after Judge Williams, but I'll try. Okay. Oh, I got to talk to Judge Williams. This is not fair. But so folks, good trouble to me it means voice. It means standing up for who you are, what you stand up for, what is fair and just. To me, it means avoiding avoidance. It also means that nothing comes easy, especially when we have to work to break status quo. It means that you and I may not be the reason for the structures the society placed around us at our birth, but that doesn't mean we accept those structures the way they are. And a learned colleague just in the last few seconds said, good trouble is discovering your life's purpose. I totally agree.
Thank you, Dr. Singh, for that. And just following off of what you said, not accepting things for what they are. And I think that is also why I've dedicated my life to getting into good trouble, because I simply don't want to see other people go through what I've been through. So with that being said, what inspires you all, to the panelists, what inspires you all to get into good trouble? And Dr. Singh, we ended with you, so we're going to begin with you this time.
Allow me to get personal, folks. I have nothing much to share today besides who I am and my personal story. If I did not stand up for what I believe in, I would not be teaching today at Pepperdine, would not have the leadership position that I have, or be a good son or a good husband or a good father. It is easy to live in that bubble of status quo, accept how things are around us, learn from people who constantly tell us this is how you should act. People like you should speak like this. You want to be careful because you look like this, so you should do these things. Not easy. At times you may go home and you cry. At times you break down because people are mean. People can be bullish. What inspires you, is beautifully said by Judge Williams, is your purpose and what's inside you. And I want to be deeply personal. What inspires me is when I was a kid, the love and care and compassion my parents gave me. Some of you are fortunate to know what I'm saying, and I'm sorry if some of you did not have it. We all deserve it. And that strength still is within me. That purpose of compassion tells me that I should not treat others how some other people have not treated me like. So in the end, I'll conclude by saying the power I have is I cannot change what you think of me. I can what I think of you.
Well, I'll courageously follow my eloquent brother, Dr. Singh, over there. What inspires me to get into good trouble is, so one part of my bio that I had not, I think, included is I'm also a pastor. So I'm a woman of faith, and my faith inspires me to get into good trouble. I'm a Christian minister, so in the worldview of Christianity, you are a follower of Christ. And to me, in studying the life of Jesus Christ, I see someone who was a disruptor, someone who had a righteous cause and who was very active and an agitator as well. And he was effective. He was not always liked. He was the subject of harsh treatment sometimes, but he was, you know, a role model of what it takes in this life to go forward towards your purpose and what you believe in, and to have the focus and determination to do it. So that motivates me to get into good trouble. If that's the cause that he would further justice, and I do think that God cares about justice. I don't think that we can call ourselves people of faith or Christians and not care about the plight of other people and look at injustices every day and do nothing about it. So I would say that my faith walk really inspires me to look for actively areas of darkness, injustice, oppression, the least of those, and to put my eyes and my purpose on it, and to use my influence and my network to also eradicate injustice.
Wow, yeah, that's really powerful. And I think I jump in and say, you know, for me, it's two parts. It's really, what inspires me is to know, you know, our history, an awareness and an understanding of history, not only in relationship to our constant and continuous battle against the oppressions that we endure, particularly, you know, in relationship to this country, but beyond that, knowing the grand history of, you know, the societies and civilizations that existed far beyond, you know, the construct of this American system. So that inspires me to know, you know, sometimes you get overwhelmed with the grandness of the society you live in, and you think, oh, well, things are just the way they are, right? But history tells us that no, things have been different and things can be different, you know? Furthermore, to me, it's really about thinking about the power that we hold as individuals and then as a community in unity, right? To actually change things. So there's a quote that I love from Kwame Ture. He said one time, you know, if a white person wants to hang me, that's his problem. But if a white person wants to can hang me, that's my problem, right? So for me, it's about us taking that power that we have to actually change the conditions of oppression that our communities have endured to this point, and really changing that for the future generations to come.
Inspire it. I think for me, just thinking about this right now, coming up with something that I think will add to the conversation as well. What inspires me is, I think, thinking about my lived experience, right? That I don't come from trauma, that trauma doesn't define me, that the knowledge, the wisdom that is, I inherited from my mother, from my grandmother, from my great-grandmother, right? That is what truly defines me. And in that, I feel like I have this obligation, this accountability in my community and for my family, for my daughter, for my son, to participate in the continuation of that thread from the past to now and to future generations. And through what I utilize, which is art. And for art, for me, it's not just a object that you put in a gallery or that you learn through Western traditional practices of art, but really rooted in the practices that come from communities like mine, communities of color, right? Chicano communities. I'm always inspired to write Chicano every time I get one of those damn, what are they, doodles, where you got to say, what's your ethnicity? And it says Hispanic or Latino. I'm neither of those. I'm Chicano, right? And so to me, it's intertwined with my lived experiences. That's what inspires me. And, you know, it's like through that I address, and in that addressing of like these harms or this knowledge is I repair, and I participate in the reparations of that. And in that, I'm hoping to transform.
Thank you, Omar, and everybody else. What's inspired me was that I worked in the education department for 10 years. I went in there with the intent to change the world, to help all these young people, help a lot of young people of color. But I soon found out that it's not there to really help them. And I ended up with ulcers and being in conflict with a lot of the policies. And it was a system that was grooming our young people to go to prison. Everything around that system was helping them. And then a lot of the youth that I was working with, they were also looking forward to it as well, because lack of rites of passage programs, you know, I'm talking a lot about kids that are involved in gangs. And so what inspired me was that. So I decided that I had to work outside of the system. So I developed a program called Beyond Limits. And I took young people backpacking to hike the highest mountain in the continental US as a metaphor, as a transformational experience. When you hike the highest mountain in the continental US, it does something to you. It did something to me. So not just seeing it, what's going on, but taking action on that. And that inspired me. Because like I said, I stayed in that system and I got ulcers, I got sick. It sickened me, what I was seeing. So I had to leave. And I left forever, never going back. But so that's what inspired me.
So just to, keep pace with the panel and the audience, getting into good trouble is not easy at all. As its name states, if you take away the good, there's still trouble. So with that being said, and Louise, we're going to start off with you. What are some skills or attributes or characteristics that you've gained throughout your career that you feel as though that has aided in you getting in house all?
What's helped me was to be humble, because as a leader, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make dumb decisions, but be humble to have that crunchy conversation, to listen to the feedback. That's how we're going to grow. And also always being creative. Like Omar talks about creativity, being creative, finding different ways of engaging. With me is with youth, and working on your craft. I'm a writer, so I write all the time. I'm always working on that, and that's my voice. That's what I want to use to communicate the injustices, what's going on. The book I wrote was based on what people don't see. It's not what I'm going to teach, but what the youth taught me. So I think a big thing is humility, and like Judge Tiffany Williams was saying, like knowing your purpose. What's your purpose? We talk about sacred purpose in the indigenous community, knowing your sacred purpose and taking care, and not letting others water it down, because society will try to water it down and redirect you. So thank you.
I'm going to jump in. I love what Mr. Luis Ruan said about humility and about also working on your craft. Just love the way you said it. And so nice to hear about your writing, and looking forward to reading your writing, sir. For me, skills are something that we need to continuously work on, obtaining them. But to answer your question directly, hopefully you have acquired these skills that I'm going to talk about. If I've not, forgive me. I think one of the skills is finding, working, understanding, and strengthening your power. What's the source of that power? What is, if you are sitting in a dark room with no windows and nobody's there to talk to you, everything looks sad to you, depressing to you, what is the source of power you're going to have at that moment that's going to lift you up? Is that how do you define your life? What's the meaning to your life? And so that's finding that, I think, is very powerful. And it could be your faith, could be your mother's love, could be your compassion towards others, or all the above, and so forth. So on. Number two, I would say it is cultivating compassion and understanding. And I love the word Mr. Lewis said about humility. and I'll use the word understanding the human race, flip it, make it a challenge. The skill is, if you're engaged in this intellectual challenge that I don't understand people, I would love to understand people, it becomes much more beautiful than thinking, I know people, I know who this person is, and then doing everything else to justify your stereotype or judgment about that person. So the first task, somehow we need to teach young kids how to not see the picture and decide, oh, I know what I'm seeing. Maybe we don't know what we are seeing. And that concludes my last point, which is, I think, skill of flexible thought, which is knowing what we know, but also knowing what we don't know, which is a lot more than what we know. Hope I made some sense. Thank you.
Christian, I'm gonna tell, oh, Judge Williams, go ahead.
I'll just jump in. I heard Professor Singh talk about power. And I think absolutely what came to my mind is, as a skill that I'm still trying to perfect myself, and it's actually my theme for this year, is learning to step into your power. You know, you can find your purpose, you can sharpen your skills. At some point, you have to step into your power and use all of that. And you may have to be the one to use your voice. You may have to be the one to stand out from the crowd, or to build, you know, an institution. I stepped out and started a nonprofit organization around, you know, the concept of women finding their life purpose. As Luis talked about, writing a book. You know, I wanted my thoughts to go beyond just the places where I could actually physically go. So sometimes you're writing, or like Omar said, your creativity, your art can go places, even in people's spirit, that you can't necessarily go. So stepping into your power means really discovering every part of you that can go places you can't go, and can be here even when you're gone. So there is an aspect of legacy building. That's a skill too. And I think personally, all of that is under the umbrella of leadership. Learning to lead yourself personally, governing your life in a manner of excellence, integrity, and knowing how the world works, and knowing how to function in different sectors of society, and essentially bringing resources to needs, mobilizing people, having a network, building support around you and around the cause. But I think most of all, being an authentic and credible person that others will believe and will want to be around and rally around. And I think that's the success that Congressman Lewis had. He was this icon that people wanted to be around, and to go forth with whatever cause he said was the priority of the day. So I think stepping into your power is actually a skill that embodies all of that. And as Dr. Singh said, you know, I think tapping into your source and your origin story, and how that also helps you inherently, whether it is your parents' love. When I think about my own life and the authenticity that I try to live in, I was raised by leaders. It's no accident I feel this way, because my parents were leaders. They were spiritual leaders, pastors. My dad was also the president of his union. He was a Teamster. So I'm a Teamster's daughter, right? You can't mess with me. But having grown up in that environment where it was cultivated. So tapping back into what kind of was cultivated in you as well, even if it was adverse circumstances that you had to kind of rise, you know, forward from as well, but tapping into every part of you to step into your power.
So yeah, I couldn't, you know, agree more with all the points that folks have already raised. I think another thing that I'd like to add on is really this, you know, a skill that I've really driven my work is this commitment or embrace of our duty to each other, right? And that is, number one, to our ancestors, right? Thinking of all the generations that have come before us, that have done the work to put us in the positions that we are now, right? If you just go back a couple of generations, you go back 10 generations, there's like over 100 people that's directly connected to your existence in this moment, right? You couldn't be here without hundreds of people. And then you think of all the peoples that impacted their lives and enabled them to be in their situations to continue on. And it goes so on and so forth. So really just like marveling at the responsibility that I have to carry that on, right? Things were done for me. Therefore, I must continue on to do and be one of those ancestors for the young people moving forward. And then secondly, I'll also say just really holding a keen and analytical mind and historical mind, right? I think in many ways, some of the efforts to sustain systems of oppression is to really erase the memory that we have of ourselves as human beings, right? The only way to really deeply ingrain an idea of what is to erase what has been. All right, so to really dig in and be analytical and really looking at the history and the sources of where things come from, I think is really powerful in driving this type of work. Good trouble.
So skill sets, to me, that's a loaded question, because there's so many skills that are taught. Like the first skill set I learned was stop being Mexican, right? Acknowledge being white, be more American, whatever term you want to call it, be more US, be more pocho, right? That's the skill set that one has to build into for success. One has to, the skill set of accepting the rubric of success in the United States, right? That's like the biggest skill set that was taught to me in LA Unified School District, right? Go to college, get that skill set. So to me, skills is a loaded question. For me, I think the skill of knowing that skill set that I was born with was marginalized, was removed, who I am, who my mom is, what indigenous ancestors do I have, because I don't even know because of the Cristero Wars. I don't know because of the immigration patterns and the loss of that memory of who I am. So the skill set of all that is the skill of acknowledging who I am and then operationalizing it. I'm a practitioner. I practice daily on my right? I practice courage. I practice truth telling, right? I practice many different skill sets that most people don't even think about. How about happiness? That's a huge skill set. My friend Marta Gonzalez told me one day that her mom said, tenemos que practicar ser feliz. We need to practice being happy. That's a skill set that a lot of us forget to practice, right? Michelle Ferrer, a good friend of mine, practice courage. In order to be good storytellers, we have to practice courage, because it's not easy telling our story, since for the longest time, we practiced the skill set of minimizing our histories, our knowledge, right? So that to me is really important, is to, as Bell Hooks talks about, the skill set of being a relentless interrogator, right? Teaching to transgress is a really big skill set. I mean, transgression is probably the biggest skill set we can have as a person of color, as people of color, as communities of color in this country. That's to me when you said skills, that's what I thought about.
Thank you, Omar, for that. So I don't want Sean to kill me, so I'm gonna try to keep this really short. But a skill that you all didn't mention that I definitely see you is resolve. And me personally, resolve isn't something that can be taught. It's something that is earned and nurtured and developed inside you over years of experience. And that's something that the late Congressman John Lewis also had. March 7th, 1965 isn't called Bloody Sunday because they were given gold bars at the end of the Edmund Pettus Bridge. So I want you all 20 seconds, literally 20 seconds, 15 if you could all give the young people and everybody on the call for that matter, a word of advice, you know, for anyone that's on the edge, they recognize the power, they see an issue that they care about, that they want to change in their community, but that resolve is still developing and growing, and it's called trouble for a reason. Like John Lewis was still beaten, and he took that beating so that we could get those voting rights in Selma, Alabama. So what piece of advice do you have to offer anyone who recognizes all these things, has the support, the community, but just needs that push to take that step to, you know, step into the good trouble?
I think prepare to be resilient, which means to recover quickly, not just recover, but recover quickly. It's shocking sometimes, the adversity that you may go through, but you have to like pop back up, like that kind of toy from back in the day that had air in it. You knock it down, but it like will always pop back up. You can sit on it, but it will always pop back up. That's what I think you have to visualize and be in your life. Don't be shocked and still on the ground and then, you know, doing the 10 count on you. Just recover quickly.
I'm a popcorn, Dr. Singh, go ahead.
Using my 2 seconds for two shouters, Shafin Roberts, Jason Harper. Thank you for coming here, guys. Yes, so many amazing people here who know way more than at least I know. Okay, now I've got 15 seconds left. One, I would say, know your fight. Before you fight, know what you're fighting for. I want to say something more provocative. Make it bigger. Prioritize. Giving up is not an option. Two, your voice counts. It's not that can you be a leader. It is what kind of leader can you be. Last, you're unique. We need uniqueness. If you're diverse, we need diversity. If you are willing to consume, I need your contribution more than your consumption. Looking forward all.
I'll jump in really quick and simple and say either start an organization or institution or join an organization or institution, right? We are dealing with systemic oppression. It's going to take systems to overcome it, right? Individuals don't beat institutions, as Dr. Carr says, Dr. Greg Carr. Yeah, you got to be with team, community, institution, organize.
I would say you don't have to be alone to do it. It's important to have a network of support, of like-minded people that will challenge you, that will push you. A mentor, find a mentor. With me, it's my faith. I follow Native Indigenous spirituality. It's my faith. That's what keeps me strong. That's what it keeps me there, like every day waking up to do this. So everybody has a belief or a faith of different religions. That's what's going to keep you strong, especially during those storms.
Omar, bases loaded, grand slam, come on.
Okay, be a firekeeper, right? Someone started the fire before us. You're just along the line of the next person, keeping the fire going for the next person, the next generation.
And there you have it. I love it. That's our all-star panel. Please give them a round of applause, some snaps, whatever you may do. I'm gonna get some snaps.